We all know that real estate has created more millionaires than any other industry on the planet. We also know that it has created a lot of heartache due to mismanagement, overborrowing, and just simple life events that happen to all of us. Welcome to the Cash Flow Pro podcast. My name is Casey Brown, and I am your fearless leader. And although we might be bourbon sipping and at times foul-mouthed Southerners, we will always do our best to be honest, straightforward, and due diligent with all of the information we pass along to you. Welcome to the show. Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of Cash Flow Pro, your daily real estate investing podcast and YouTube channel. I want to welcome today Evan Holladay of Holladay Ventures. He and I were talking here just a minute ago, and actually we're only located about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes away from one another. So I told him I always love it when the Cash Flow Pro can connect right here in our backyard so that we can maybe network and come up with a deal or find deals for our listeners or whatever we can do. So Evan, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Casey. Thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome, man. We're glad to have you here, and we're glad to connect and see if we can provide value to the listeners and value to you, and maybe we can learn something from one another. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, and then kind of maybe transition into how you got into real estate and what made you see the light at the end of the tunnel in capital raising and whatever it is you got going on.
Yeah, let's dive in. So a little bit about myself. Like you said, we're based here in Nashville by way of, I'm originally from Cincinnati area, spent some time in Louisville. And really what I found over the years is my passion is both helping people, helping others, serving others, and just love the art of the deal, putting deals together, and specifically real estate development. I love development. I love how you can literally change a neighborhood forever by being able to build, our built environment that we live in every day, and we spend a vast majority of our day in buildings. So that's always fascinated me. I really kind of fell into real estate. As a little kid, I wanted to be an architect. Then I switched to wanting to be a doctor. And then I got to college and I realized I hated science and I hated chemistry. So that was not a good fit for me. And but I saw a big student housing development. I went to University of Louisville and I saw a big student housing development going on. And I was like, man, I got to be a part of that. Something's calling me in. And, I followed that gut feeling and was able to get a connection to the developer.
Awesome.
And I had to, prove myself to that developer.
Sure.
But I was able to get, a couple hundred people out to his groundbreaking. And at that point, he's like, all right, I think this young whippersnapper's got something going here. So I was the first one he hired, and I really just kind of learned the business, soaked up as much as I could, and tried to surround myself with people like that developer who were making stuff happen and really where I wanted to be and where I saw myself going. And that's where I learned all about real estate and development, but knew I wanted more, and I wanted also to do it with purpose. And so that's when, really, as part of a class in my entrepreneurship classes in the business school, they're like, "Hey, put together a business." And I was like, "Well, guys, my team," I was like, "we're putting together a real estate business," and we put together a modular development company specifically for mixed income housing. So we did affordable, workforce, and market rate all in the same development. We're able to do it modular. So we built it off site and then shipped it to the job site, and literally we could build it in 7 days. And that just, snowballed into, we actually turned it into an actual business out of college. And we were very naive. We didn't really know anything about real estate development, but we just took action, and one thing led to another. And I ended up looking for development partners because I knew that, again, was the only way I could break into this super high barrier to entry world, was by finding people that were already in it and doing it and had that trusted network around them. And through looking for a partner, one of those groups said, "Hey, how about you come work for us?" And I ended up seeing that as a golden opportunity for me to really, peel back the curtain and see how the sausage is made as far as real estate development, multifamily, and affordable housing, and doing public-private partnerships. working with the government to help create affordable housing. It's really complex. So I was like, rather than me try to learn and fail on my own, why don't I find a leader in the industry and a leader in the business and learn from them?
Sure.
And that's exactly what I did. I worked with them for 6 years, did over 1,000 units there, and then eventually was like, man, I feel like I could do this better, and we could do this bigger, better, and with more impact. And that's when we started Holladay Ventures with the purpose of creating impact-driven communities that are intentionally designed and developed to create attainable housing and wrapping that with resident empowerment services. So we can not just build affordable housing, but we can empower our residents to, eventually get out of affordable housing and live their best life.
Shoot, yeah, man. That's wow. I got a lot to unpack there. That's well, the first thing I want to unpack, well, first two things I want to unpack is you said the word Louisville, correct? I I, I
Oh
knew
yeah.
I knew when you started talking Cincinnati, and I wondered if I was like, and then yep, I love it when I don't hear somebody say Louisville because it's not
Yeah.
Louisville, it's Louisville. And so you said that right. So there we go. And the number two thing, of course, we all know the great syndicator from the Cincinnati area, uh, who I have taken a lot from and have learned so much from, and is actually responsible for me having a daily podcast. And so, you definitely have the back the backstory there that leads you to where you are now. So so by way of Cincinnati through Louisville to Nashville, and then of course you made mention prior to the show that you were looking at some stuff or even possibly doing a deal in Clarksville, which is just right next door. A lot of military housing, stuff like that. Can you share a little bit about that, or can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's really early stages, but we're looking at how can we provide affordable housing and attainable housing. We like to call it attainable because affordable can have really negative connotations in a lot of
Sure,
people's mind.
sure.
But attainably priced housing is what we're trying to build there. Clarksville, is a quickly growing city, and it's been great for the local economy and it's just going crazy. It's like a boom town there,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
like many other cities across the country. But Clarksville's been doing really well. But a side effect of that is they have a lack of affordable housing for the working class families that have been there day in day out and building up that economy.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of push for affordable housing. So we're still early stages, but yeah, I love the market, love the city, and would love to be able to do a development there.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's one of those cities that it benefits a lot, much like we do here, just right across the state line in Hopkinsville, because we have the military establishment that really kind of picks up our slack. But then we also, and notice I said slack because we also have a big industrial workforce, and then we also have agricultural. So we've got through the three big segments right here for things to really, it's kind of the perfect storm in a way at times. And then at times when the military's gone, it can really it can be kind of lean. We have to try to make things work. But tell us a little bit about I'm not sure if you mentioned Holiday Ventures, and what year did you all kind of, what years did all of this kind of take place?
Yeah, so I started working for that company in 2013,
Okay.
right after I graduated college, and Holiday Ventures is we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh, that's great. And then, what does Holiday Ventures? What specific asset classes are you all focused on right now?
Yeah, so our bread and butter, our niche is probably 80% of what we do is affordable ground up new construction,
Okay.
usually with a mixed use component or a very unique aspect to the development.
Okay.
And we do some market rate development ground up as well. We also do some acquisition of existing multifamily, but it's all multifamily. We prefer to be 200 plus unit communities. And to give you a couple examples of the the typical project that we do, nothing we do is really typical, but to give you a couple examples, we recently closed on a development with a nonprofit partner that does substance abuse recovery services.
Okay.
They've operated out of this downtown location here in Nashville. We're like 2 blocks away from the Titans Stadium,
Okay.
and they've really they're sitting on very valuable land, and they wanted to expand their services, but not leave that location. So we figured out a creative way to be able to more than double their services and facilities, and they're
Hmm.
create a state of the art brand new building for them.
Oh, wow.
So they're going from 50 beds to 132 beds, and then also on top of that, build 192 affordable units, or sorry, 195 affordable units, and then phase two. So they're operating in the footprint of phase two in their existing buildings. We're going to move them into their new building. As soon as that happens, we'll build phase two. That will be another 289 workforce units, which will be like middle income range or lower middle income range. So that's one type of development, partnering with nonprofits, doing urban developments. We're doing another one where we're partnering with a big corporate partner to provide 311 units, as well as first floor commercial space with an entrepreneurship center and a co-working place, and partnering with nonprofits again to provide those services,
Sure.
and then also building and designing very sustainably to lead standards and above. And then we
Wow.
have one other one we're working on now that is
Now,
geared
are we
towards
talking all in
specifically
Nashville?
towards. Yep, yeah,
Okay.
all
Okay.
in Nashville. We work throughout the Southeast, but as of late, our most recent projects have been in Nashville, Louisville, and Huntsville.
Wow, isn't that something? Well, I tell you, about 5 or 6 years ago, um, I was in Nashville. Of course, we're there pretty regular, just as entertainment or whatever we were doing. But at one time, Nashville had something like, if you said like east of the Mississippi, which is a term that those of us that live east of the Mississippi, that's what you hear it all the time. So there was something like 90% of all of the skyscraper cranes that were in the South, or in the east of the Mississippi, were in Nashville or something along those lines. It was something stupid like that. Where and when you drove down the interstate, you looked over there and that's all you saw was just crane, 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 crane. I'm talking like 30 or 40 of them. And it was just an unbelievable sight to see
Yeah,
all of this stuff expand and grow. And here we are with a guy that's done it, that's seen it, that's been right there on the front lines. Now, I assume there was, when you're talking about the substance abuse, I want to go back to the first example you gave us, the substance abuse center that you're involved with there. And number one, the fulfillment that must bring, to know that you're actually available there to actually help somebody, along with not only making a profit, but being able to potentially change lives in different directions of people
right.
that may or may not otherwise have had the opportunity. But number two, the I assume, are we talking over there like across the, what used to be, like if you would have called years ago, across the tracks, where it was basically like, I remember there was a movie when I was a kid called Adventures in Babysitting. And Adventures in Babysitting, like it was all settled in these big warehouses where there was like car chop shops and some other stuff and all these kids. Anyway, but that's what it used to be when I was a kid. It was across the tracks. It was warehouse space. It was nothing but warehouse space, abandoned warehouses at that. Is that some of the types of areas that we're talking about?
There is a little bit of that around the Titan Stadium, but really around us, you do have some existing public housing, but there are also, 5-story luxury market rate one
Sure.
block away from us. So it's really kind of a hodgepodge right around us, but it's crazy, man. Everything in Nashville is just blowing up, and so they're currently talking about totally redeveloping it's called the East Bank or East Nashville, and they're talking about putting in billions of dollars into the East Bank redevelopment, brand new Titan Stadium that apparently is going to cost $2 billion, and redeveloping that entire space. So, oh, and not to mention, Oracle just announced 8,500 jobs, less than 2 miles from our site.
Yeah.
So it's. I think it used to be a little bit of a not so great part of town,
Yeah.
but it has definitely turned a leaf just with
Well,
the amount of people and the amount of money that are coming into Nashville.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is it used to just be like when I was a kid, you would hear Nashville, and like immediately anybody that wasn't from around close was like, "What are those hicks doing down? What are y'all gonna do this?" Yeah, it was something that was just so small. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah,
necessarily small, but I mean, it was just it wasn't like it is now, and it seems like Nashville and Austin are the two areas that just like something somewhere poured gas on their fire, like gas,
yeah,
like straight gas, and is just boom. I mean, just
yeah, like jet
exploded.
fuel.
Yeah, and it's been fun to watch. I mean, from because a lot of that business, obviously, from a real estate sales standpoint, has trickled our direction as it's grown out. And and to be quite honest, we're only an hour away, so it's we get to enjoy the benefits of Nashville. And not necessarily have to be all up in the gridlock or whatever you want to call it, downtown area or whatever. But so I want to go back real quick to something you said, and there was a different word you said affordable housing. It was attainable housing, and with a mixed use component. And I want to kind of hone in a little bit there because there's always been this. Those of us in the real estate or in the marketing business or any type of marketing have probably heard at one point or another the term "there's riches in the niches," and again, and I don't know that you can really get any more niche than saying, "Hey, we're going to put a mixed use component," and that component. Explain that a little bit to us as to what maybe what's what, and I think I know where you're going to go with it, but I want to hear you just kind of maybe go a little deeper into that.
Yeah, definitely. What what I've learned through, my 10 plus years in development and also just constantly looking out for good quality development. And, I love just reading up also on prior development, prior developers. You're going to ask about, one of my favorite books. I already have that in my head because it's about a developer. So my point is, I love learning about good quality development because I think there's the easy way to do development and then there's the good quality way to do development.
Sure.
And I think really if you want to have a long standing well designed and developed community, you have to have a mix of uses. I think our the easy way to develop is just do single family over here, do your commercial over here, do your apartments over here, do your hospitals over here, your schools over here. But really, if we are going to design and build a beautiful, long term, well used community, an efficient community, it has to have a mix of uses. And so that's what we're always striving to do. So, going back to a couple examples, I said like the partnership with the Substance Abuse Recovery Center, like we're not just building affordable housing,
Sure.
we're building affordable housing and a substance abuse recovery center on the same block. And we're even building a bridge between the two, like a metaphorical bridge where the substance abuse recovery graduates have first access to a
Sure.
certain number of the units.
Yep.
So that way we can help create independence on their journey towards, a sober life.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so I think thinking outside the box of, how can you make a unique community and create amenities directly on the first floor, with apartments above. So that's why we're doing like the entrepreneur and co-working center,
Yep.
providing affordable space for our residents to start a business or grow their business and mentorship and guidance in that space.
Yep.
And there's so many different ways to do that, but I think just thinking outside the box of just saying instead of how can I build X number of apartments, be like how can I build a community that's going to create lasting change.
Yep.
And if you come at it with that lens, then you will actually think more outside the box. You'll think about partners you can bring in. It makes for a lot of fun in my eyes. It makes for more work, I think, but the work is way more fulfilling, like you mentioned before.
Sure, it gives you it leads with purpose, and if you lead with value and lead with purpose, you leave a legacy, and that's I think gets lost in sometimes our chase for profitability. The ability to leave a legacy is, I think, what a lot of us envision. but we envision that 80 years down the road. We don't envision getting that one little minuscule piece at a time. And so, along with the profitability and the need to support our families, things like that are what leads to having buildings named after people, and that's what leads to leaving, having things, because it's the good that you've done that gets to reflect in how you leave that. So again, I really commend you on that, because there's not a lot of that. Again, that element of it seems to get lost in all this entrepreneurial chase. The element of, okay, hey, I remember one time my stepdad, he had just came home from a funeral, and he was middle aged, I guess, like myself, is like I am now. And he was very kind of like, I don't know the best word to describe it would be like melancholy. He was just like, yeah, just like he just had lost his air. And he said, he said, one of the things that I think, and he and I got to talking, and he said, one of the things that I think about is, what are they going to say about me when I'm up there? Like, what I'm leaving? And I feel like, he did a job of raising us, that I think that is definitely a legacy that's going to last at least as long as we do. So nevertheless, I know that's kind of, I think that's everybody's pick me up for the day, but I just, that's very, very interesting. And so I want to transition this talk a little bit towards the capital raising side. And like most people, I'm assuming that you are you raising through 506B, 506Cs? Are you just accredited? And kind of tell us, how does that landscape look? And then we'll kind of dive maybe into a few little spots there.
Yeah, definitely. So we have, honestly, we don't have a specific type of raise that we do. Every project is different.
Yeah, well, I
We
mean,
also have
yeah, we
many
can
different
tell
opportunities.
everything you've told us has been like that. The elements and stuff is so involved. That's great. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So we do multiple different offerings for our investors, and we like to call our investors our impact investors,
Okay.
because they do get that impact component when they're investing. They can feel good about what their money's going towards and
Sure.
get a recession-resistant return all at the same time. I think that's one of the beautiful things about what we do about in affordable is you feel good about the capital you're putting out, and because it's affordable, the long-term need is always going to be there. So you have this built-in risk mitigation for your capital,
Sure.
and you can make competitive returns just with any other type of real estate. So just one of the many reasons why I love affordable housing. But to your point of how do we raise and what do we do on our raising side, our capital raising side? So we typically work with high net worth individuals, raising on our development side. We raise like a pre-development fund,
Okay.
either per project, or we're actually going to be launching an impact development fund this year, so our investors can be diversified over 5 different projects at a time.
Okay.
And those typically return either 8 to 10% preferred return, and they get really the downside mitigation by having first right to basically the title to the land.
Okay.
So what we do is as we're working on these developments, we're working with architects, engineers, third-party reports, third-party vendors, putting all that together, getting it ready to be built and constructed. Well, that process usually takes 2 to 3 years and roughly about $3 million worth of capital per
Wow.
project. So that's usually we'll spend the first 100 grand of our own capital, usually the riskiest capital, to make sure the project is moving forward.
Yeah.
And then once we know it's a go, that's when we bring in our impact investors and bring them along for the pre-development cycle. And those are typically like a 2 to 3 year investment cycle, so they're shorter, but a preferred return, so they can turn their cash quickly,
Sure.
and they can choose to basically reinvest in the next deal if they want, or reinvest in the fund.
Is that
Um,
okay? So you're saying that's by the deal, and then when you get the fund set up, then people can, as some of those earlier investments start to mature, they can make, if they want to reinvest, they can reinvest into the fund across 5 deals.
right, right, and even in the fund, they can choose to just keep their principal investment amount, just keep it in the fund, and then it just continues to reinvest every time we have a new deal.
Awesome, man. That's great. And Hi, this is Casey Brown, host of the Cash Flow Pro podcast and YouTube channel. Have you been thinking about investing in real estate but just don't know where to begin? I'd like to help by inviting you to check out our website at www.3000capital.com. There you will find an array of material that will help you learn all about real estate syndication. And while you're there, be sure to check out our free video series download titled 5 Must Know Keys to Success in Passive Real Estate Investing. I'd also like to personally thank you for making Cashflow Pro part of your day. Now, back to the show. This whole funds stuff is, and I knew it was going to come where some creativity was going to start with because you see, well, like for instance, we're a fund of funds, and so we basically have like everything is kind of predefined, and you come in and you've got this square box and you've got this stuff that fits in a square box, and here it is, and we're a fund of funds and we're going to reinvest. But as I knew, as time went on, or as time goes on, they're gonna continue to get more and more creative with how, because it was really difficult at first for people to understand that if I wanted to invest all in one project, that I needed to be per project and not necessarily on a fund level. But anyway, neither here nor there. So people can roll out of individual investments into the fund and be diversified across 5 projects. And then of course, do you have individual, like obviously there's boots on the ground in different spots, but you said you're across Huntsville, Nashville, and what was the other
And
one?
Louisville.
Louisville.
Hmm.
And so you have, I guess I'm assuming, separate crews for each that kind of, and then an on-site manager and such as that.
Yeah, so on-site management, on-site maintenance. And typically, if they're for our 200 plus unit communities, it's anywhere from 4 to 6 people, a team of 4 to 6, both on the management, leasing, and the maintenance side.
Awesome. And you said 8 to 10% pref. Is that kind of what you're expecting the fund to look like, or is that just kind of past stuff that you've done in the past? Is that kind of how it's yielded, or?
Yeah, those are past deals. The fund will probably be, we haven't finalized the structure, but it'll probably be like an 8% pref. And then there will be a 1 to 2% kind of bonus allocation whenever we close deals.
Awesome. And then I'm assuming some hurdles and stuff is that, such as that, as the IRR climbs, something along those lines.
Not in the fund, but we do have like individual projects where they can invest for the long term as part of the ownership group of the developments.
Awesome.
The fund is just more of like a pre-development, more of like a cash flow
Yeah. Well, it lets you
monthly.
do some planning too. It lets you see what capital's there that needs to be allocated, and you can kind of start planning some of that stuff around that too, I guess, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, listen, I want to, first of all, I want to thank you for being with us today. I mean, obviously, like I said, it's not every day I get somebody that's an hour away to be on our show. We have people all over the country and actually all over the world, as it seems like we've gathered some more folks that want to be on and want to talk and want to be heard. And so, but I'd like to, of course, as I end most every show, or have recently began ending every show, I'd like to for you to tell the listeners, what is your favorite book that you've read, and it doesn't even have to be real estate, but what do you feel like has been your, maybe a book that was kind of a catalyst for you to really get you going and get you headed in the right direction.
Well, I would definitely want to bring up a book that I recently read.
Okay.
It's called Zeckendorf.
Exactly.
It's about a developer. It's an autobiography about a developer. His name's William Zeckendorf.
Okay.
And if you have been to New York, then you've probably seen one of his buildings. He developed quite a bit of the modern day skyline of New York,
Wow.
and have even developed in many, many other cities. And his big thing was developing unique communities. And so I had already had that philosophy. I didn't know that was his philosophy before I read the book, and I saw that, and I was like, that's exactly how I think. It's really about creating unique communities, and that will create a better investment. It may cost you more upfront,
Yep.
but it will create a longer term viability for your community and better impact for your residents, or whatever the product type is. You're just going to create a better community, which in the long term will create better returns and just a beautiful property.
Sure. Sure, man, that's awesome. And yeah, my wife and I traveled to Italy recently, and when you're talking about how like if you've been in New York, you've seen his buildings or whatever. And it's so funny to me how like things over there are broke down into who the, like they're broke down into periods, and then they're broke down into who was the architect involved, and so on and so forth. And so it's very interesting, and it's very interesting to see like old Rome was the same way, like down at the you remember what they called the forum, and you see all of that stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, well so and so did this, and then when and it was all kind of centered around the guy that whose idea it was. Again, there you go. They're back to the word legacy. So, but anyhow, so tell us what is a like a either a dream trip that you've either taken or that you hope to take and possibly enjoy someday.
Yeah, great question. I would say my current dream trip is going to Zion National Park, which we're going to go to later this year. So
Awesome.
that's what I'm picturing right now.
Man, that's great. That's going to be a good trip for sure. And so with that, we're kind of approaching the end of our show, and I'd like for you to, Evan, tell the listeners how they can reach out to get in touch with you, whether that be via email or your website or whatever it is you'd like, or however you'd like for somebody to reach out. Maybe they want to be an investor, or you've said something here, then they want to maybe pick your brain a little bit about what's the best way for them to reach out to you.
Yeah, definitely. Our website, Evan Holladay, and Holladay is spelled Holladay,
Okay.
evanholladay.com.
Okay.
That's the best place to see everything we're doing. And then my email is evan@holladayventures.com.
Awesome, man. That's great. Well, I want to take a second to thank you so much for being on today. We really appreciate it. And we always enjoy especially when developers come on here, because development is something that a lot of us as like apartment syndicators, if you will, is kind of, I guess, the term that we use a lot. We don't see a lot of the development, because a lot of times by the time something's syndicated, it's obviously already there and functioning and all of that stuff is. But man, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Casey.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you. Hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day.
Cashflow Pro is hosted by Casey Brown, founder and CEO of 3000 Capital, a commercial real estate investment firm committed to providing its investors with ongoing cash flow and helping them build long-term wealth. If you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified about all our future episodes. You can find more information about us and our investment philosophy by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thanks for listening.